welcome back to another video. My name is Jill and today I'm going to be hauling the books that I got from the end of December to like the middle of February, so let's get started. One would think that after my incredibly huge Christmas book haul that I wouldn't be buying books for a while. Wrong. I have like 20 books to show you guys. It's okay, I know I have a problem. I've come to terms with it. I'm just gonna get right into it. The first couple books that I'm gonna show you guys are some that if you watched my bookshelf tour you might have already seen. If you haven't seen that yet, I will link it up in the cards right there. So the first book I have is one that I actually just finished last night at 2 a.m. and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This book was so great. I'm going to talk about more in my wrap-up. I won't go really into my thoughts right now. So A Darker Shade of Magic is set in this world where there are parallel Londons. There are 4 different Londons. There are Grey London, White London, Red London, and the supposed extinct Black London. And they all have different amounts of magic. All these Londons used to be able, like you could go freely between them, but they've actually been cut off from each other. So each London is now isolated. And there are only 2 people in this world who can travel in between Londons, and they are called Antari. And basically this book follows a guy named Kel, and he is one of the 2 Antaris, and he basically is a messenger for the royal family, and he like goes in between the Londons to deliver messages, but he's also kind of a smuggler. Then he meets this girl pirate named Delilah Bard, and they go on an adventure, and it's so good. I highly recommend it. Next up I have a book that I've been wanting to pick up for ages, and that is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I have no idea when I'm actually going to read this. I know controversy is surrounding this book, but I've heard very, very good things about this, and I feel like I'm old enough to enjoy it now. So I'm really interested to see if I enjoy this, because like I said, I've heard some controversy surrounding it, so we'll see. The next book I have is Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes, and I have been holding off reading this series until all the books are out because I don't want to be in the middle of another fantasy series, but I've heard great things about this book. Recently I've sort of heard some mixed things, but like mostly they are really good things. I've heard that it's like a teen version of Game of Thrones, which I'm all for because I'm officially caught up in Game of Thrones, and that's a discussion for another day. Okay, I hope I enjoy this. Next up, I have another book that I already read and talked about, and that is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This is a collection of poetry, and it basically is split up into 4 different parts. It's split up into the hurting, the loving, the breaking, and the healing, and it's basically like a woman talking about all different things. It's really, really freaking good. I wish I would have read this like earlier in my life because it contains like so many wonderful messages. Highly recommend this if you want to start reading some more poetry. And now I have Steelheart and Firefight, both by Brandon Sanderson, and these are the first 2 books in his Reckoners series. If you guys haven't been on my channel long, I have an obsession with Brandon Sanderson, but I've only read his Mistborn series, and so I wanted to give this one a try because I know this isn't like high epic fantasy, and I don't think I'm ready for another high epic Brandon Sanderson fantasy right now because after my like withdrawal from Mistborn. So I'm excited to see if I like these books as much as I can gather. They're like about superheroes or something like that. I really don't know, but Brandon Sanderson wrote them, so I'm gonna buy them. Next up, I have a Frostblood by Ellie Blake. This is another book that I've mentioned a couple times on my channel, but this book I'm reading for book club. I actually have to read it in like the next 5 days, which is awkward because I haven't started yet. But I know that this book is a fantasy that follows this girl named Ruby, and she is a fireblood, but in this world, I guess the Frostblood's ruling, and if you have fire in your veins, that's like no bueno. So I don't know, I've said this multiple times, but the summary sounds pretty generic, but I've heard really good things about it from people that I trust, so I'm interested to see what I think of this. Next up, I have a book that I sort of picked up on a complete whim because it was a cheap used copy at my local bookstore, and that is The Winter's Crime by Marie Rukowski. I do have the first book in this series, haven't read it yet. I think the main reason why I got this book was 1, because it was super cheap, and 2, because it is the original pretty hardcover, and like the new covers suck. And I really wanted to get the original covers because I just love them. They're like so freaking pretty. Oh, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry that I got this. Hopefully whenever I read this series I'll love it. I've heard amazing things about it. Another thing that I'm not really sure what it's about. I think it's sort of fantasy. I don't know what the series is about, but I'm ready for it. Now I have the book that I received in my January Owl Crate, and that is Rose Blood by A.G. Howard. Oh, if you don't know, A.G. Howard wrote the Splinter trilogy, which is one of my favorite trilogies of all time ever. It is an Alice in Wonderland retelling, and so I was so ready for this book. This is a Phantom of the Opera retelling, and I'm really excited. I've heard like mixed things, mostly negative things about this book, so I'm kind of scared. But then again, not a lot of people like the Splinter trilogy, so maybe I'll like this book too. Plus, guys, the font is red. The font is red in this book. Okay, if every single book had colored font, I feel like more people would read in general. Am I right? I think so. Next up, I have 3 arcs that were kind of thrust upon me. Like, I walked into book club and one of my friends literally had these 3 arcs and thrust them in my hand and said, "Here, take these." I'm not sure if I'll ever read these books, but I will always accept arcs. The first one I have is Forever for a Year by B.T. Gottfried. I don't know what this is about. It looks like a contemporary. Maybe I'll read it sometime. Probably not. We'll see. Again, I have Mirror in the Sky by Aditi Khorana. This sort of looks like an... Okay, so there's a message from an alternate Earth. Light years away is intercepted by NASA. This means that on another planet there is another version of Terra, and Terra could be living a better life, burning brighter because of tiny differences in her choices. So I'm getting sort of a parallel worlds kind of vibe. You know, maybe I'll read this. And actually the summary kind of makes it sound kind of interesting, so yeah. And next up is a book that I actually heard of and I actually am probably going to read, and that is A Bright Smoke, Cold Fire by Rosamund Hodge. And this is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, I believe, and I've had my eye on this book for a while and I'm really interested in it because I've heard great things about Rosamund Hodge's other books, so I'll probably read this one. Like I said, it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, which is interesting. And next up, I ordered a few books off of Amazon. The first book I got is Uprooted by Naomi Novik, and the only reason I got this book is because my best friend Rayanne from Reading Rayanne, this was like her second favorite book of the entire year, and I was like, I gotta get that now. So thank you, Rayanne. I hope I like this book. I don't know when I'm gonna get to it. So as much as I can gather from the back, it follows this person whose name I'm not gonna try to pronounce. It's like Agnieszka, Agnieszka. And she basically lives in this like quiet village town, and basically this village relies on this wizard called the Dragon, and every 10 years I guess he demands that a young woman is handed over to her, and the main character is convinced that it's going to be her best friend, but it actually ends up not being her best friend. Sounds creepy as hell. I'm excited. Rayanne, I hope I like this or I'm going to blame you. And next up, I got Wayfarer by Alexander Bracken. This is the sequel and conclusion to the Passenger duology. I read Passenger actually back like even before it was published because I had an arc of it and I enjoyed it. It wasn't my absolute favorite in the entire world. It was sort of like really world building heavy, but Alexander Bracken is one of my favorite authors ever. And this book is like way longer than the first one, which is fantastic. And I'm really excited to finish this world because I've heard great things. And I know that this book is probably going to be much better than the first one because it won't have to rely on all that world building stuff. But yeah, and if you don't know, the Passenger duology is basically a scavenger hunt through time. It follows this girl named Etta Spencer. She can play the violin, which open these portals to different worlds. It's really great. It's really fun. And finally, in that Amazon order, I got A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. And this is the sequel to A Darker Shade of Magic. Obviously, I'm not going to say potentially what this is about because if you haven't read the first one, this one will spoil you, but I think that's Delilah on the front, which is... I'm probably going to read this one really soon because I'm going to a V.E. Schwab signing actually for the 3rd book and I want to be caught up, so hopefully I'll be reading this one soon. Next up, I have my finished copy of History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. If you haven't been following my channel for long, I actually read this book back a few months ago and it wasn't my absolute favorite thing in the world, but I still cannot stop thinking about it, and I wanted to pre-order it because I just love Adam, and I did want a finished copy of it because it looks so good next to More Happy, and even though I didn't like it as much as More Happy Than Not, I still really enjoyed it and I highly recommend it for people to read because Adam is amazing. Next up, I have The Edge of Everything by Jeff Giles. Never looks like a contemporary. It is not. It is set in this world, I think, where there's a bounty hunter of souls. Does this look like a bounty hunter for souls kind of book? And look, on the spine it says one more soul. James Dasher, literally, he blurbed this book by saying, utterly fantastic, dark, funny, exciting, a unique clashing of worlds. Every human alive should read this book. That is some damn high praise. So I'm really ready to get into this. I don't know when I'm gonna get to it, but hopefully it's good. And hopefully it looks more promising than this cover. They could have done so much better with this cover. Next up, I got a book that I sort of bought on a whim, and that is 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. I actually read What Light by J. Asher a while ago, back in December, and I enjoyed it, and I just know that this book just is a classic. It's becoming a modern classic. It's about this girl who commits suicide, and I think she records things on cassette tapes and gives them to different people to try to figure out why she committed suicide, and I just know that this has been getting the highest praise, and I actually saw a trailer of it for the Netflix original series. The trailer looked a little strange, but I was really intrigued, and I saw it at my bookstore, and I was like, I should probably read this book because I just know that it's like a modern classic, and I feel like I'm missing out on something. So this one should be good. Whew, and the final book I have in this haul, I know it's been a long one, is King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. As I mentioned in my previous video, I have to read this book for book club. This is the third and final book in the Red Queen series. I'm hoping it's better than the first two because I didn't like the first two. In the Red Queen world, it is separated by a blood, the red sort of common people and the silver people who have magical powers, and it follows this girl named Mare. Has red blood, but she has the power of a silver, and the Reds rebel. And I know so many people like this series, and I'm like, I hope I like this book more. Even though I didn't really like the first two books, I am genuinely very excited to read this book because I've seen the trailer for it, and what happened at the end of Glass Sword, I sort of like really want to figure out what happened, so I'm just hoping that the characters are less annoying in this book, because that's what been my main problem, is that the characters annoy me so much, but we'll see. So there you have it. That was my January-ish book haul. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more bookish things from me. And I'm gonna switch it up. Since Valentine's Day is coming up, how about you guys comment down below who would be your fictional Valentine? So yeah, I have my Goodreads, Twitter, personal Instagram, and Bookstgram all linked down below if you guys want to go follow me on those platforms. And yeah, thanks again so much for watching. I will see you guys later in another video. Bye!